Hi, everybody. This is Poets Aloud series, where I read poetry aloud, starting with about a dozen of my own poems, and then I go to favorites by other poets. Tonight's other poets will be Judah Al Harizi and Rumi, the 13th century Christian Dervish poet, in translation, of course, and Dom Gabrielli, an Italian poet who writes in English and French. He's honored me by asking me to edit some of his poetry books, and that's been a pleasure. So we'll promote some of them here, and you can see why his books sell well. So let's start now with welcoming in spring. Are we ready for spring? Have we had enough snow? I think the best thing about winter is that it passes. You may agree with me. And this poem celebrates that fact. Soon. Listen to me turning earth. I will take this much of winter and no more. Soon there must be warmth at night, a chorus of frogs, great blue herons, and a frolic of loons. Let sunshine through only the thinnest of clouds thaw frost off new grasses, sweet feast for waking deer. Send up demitasse crocus unfolded from within pale bulbs. Your cold chaperone must leave you now, hyacinth, narcissus, tulips, for we have only so much patience with the sobering snow. We must have the rest of the year for celebrations. The next one is by request. It's called The Credible Man. Receive, receive. You cannot hide your need, say all the plants in the garden. Each rose tells promise and mortality without a word. Go ahead and say the spruce trees are sinister, but their freshness, the clutch of small eggs among branches like cupped hands, contradict you. Like this will be the credible man, the man sold out to hope, who abandons falsehood, cancels his suicide, forsakes the road that leads only away from his home, his woman, who will not be to him a purse, a ladder, or a drum. By all the light I have, this is the man I can believe, whose gift so eloquent, even if he is silent, his love will be published anyway. His words of love only the second witness. He speaks treasure to me in our solitude, in a tone that says his whole body draws deep from the ground beneath them. His voice is true as root water, calling her name. Love in his voice, not contradicted by the all-seeing air or the remembering earth. Next one is Certainties. Drought is a lie. Rain returns. Sky water falls. Light repeats. Cold is cruel, yet always bested by warm renewal. Death is a lie. Courage to love changes the world, makes a future from nothing. Magnolias flower before packing their lunch. Here to mock magnolia knowledge, final frost nips excess in the bud. This pruning is no damage, serves only to make what survives flower thrice its usual measure. Next. If you've ever heard Friel, the French singer, sing Wonder Where My Past Loves Are, you know sort of what I'm talking about here. I listened to it, very pretty voice, very pretty song, but I don't share those sentiments. I just don't wonder about them. They were gone long ago, and I wish them well, but I've never wished them back. So this is a poem about that. Gone past loves. She does not wonder where past loves have gone, though Friel's longing after those infideles, youth and beauty, is pretty to hear. I have gone past to a place without need for circles or fortress. She has gone from speech to listen as the deer listens for salt's whisper through bare trees. There are lessons for me in deer tracks, through mud after snow as they walk toward sleeping rainbows. Perhaps the promise they make of true love will come true. She has looped back to the place before pain when it was enough to simply behold or gently hold the man's testosterone rose, like a newborn bird in an open hand. Back to when his open hand on her roundness, only lightly touching her skin, was fullness of satisfaction, more encompassing than the sky's ever open eye. Another love poem, Not Far From Here. Years ago, I moved to Indiana, not because I planned on it. Oops. I didn't plan to move to Indiana. It just sort of happened as a natural course of need for employment and scarcity of employment in southern Michigan, where I lived at the time. I got a really good deal on a Toyota Tercel from Dave, a man from my church who sold used cars. That was fabulous. So I was able to work a gardening outdoor job, and this poem came out of that experience. Not far from here. Not far from here, the wild creek runs to resting fields under a bridge where I lay down when I arrived. The water cleaned a fresh wound without hesitation. A gentler nurse never walked so near. Inside me, I am still healing where the road makes a shelter not far from here. Still a ways off, the dark-winged pharaoh across in the sky hears the great blue heron's four-note welcome. Together they take praise through the sky, always a celebration. Not ever in dreams has sweeter music landed on my spirit's ear. That before I came here was trouble's pummeled drum. Not far from here, where ground is pleased to lay neglect to the neglect of the crowds, the stillness, all in secret of 500,000 trillions, makes its yearly wedding dress. A lovelier teacher never told how absence can be a form of kindness. Within me, I am there all year, where friends discover our safety, the gift of discretion. I am enriched, though only sometimes near you. Trouble is fading or gone. Love is not far from here. Next is a poem that was published on a tree trunk in front of the library a couple of years ago for the poetry parade in front of the library every year. They put them up they post them in the front yard of the library, and it's really fun. This one's called A Local Muse Speaks. My name is not Greek, and if it were speakable, would take a lifetime to say. Keats got it wrong. I said, gather ye pay stubs while ye may. Truth is old and looks it. This is all we know. Beauty can disguise villainy. But did they write that? No. Lenny Bruce is dead. Obscenity in this world of official lies is redundant. Why not write instead 12 words that heal the world? I teach the new dog old tricks. I keep an eye in for trouble. I put on my pants both legs at a time. I'm the muse. I don't owe you normal. Now we move on to some more philosophical poems. This was against dialectical positivism. What is that? That's hard to say. Dialectical positivism is where people believe there's no invisible world, and the male represents a whole column of things, and the female represents their opposites. And so if the male represents intelligence, the female represents chaos and creativity, but chaos. And if the male represents justice, the female represents mercy. And if the male represents strength, the female represents weakness. And on it goes. And people as late as St. Augustine believed in this. St. Augustine once wrote that man is the light of intelligence and woman is the dirt that new life comes from. He got that from dialectical positivists, from the Greeks he studied. He didn't get that from the Bible, but he's been blamed as being a sexist, and the Bible's been blamed for being sexist ever since then. It'd be fun to meet him someday. He may have been corrected by now. Against dialectical positivism. The cross-eyed philosopher rejects thick lenses loaned to him by ancient Greeks and older Asians. Contrary to what he was taught, he has learned by living that spirit is not the enemy of the body, female is not the opposite of the male, male is not the light of reason, and female is not the darkness. Nature drops any wall you can build. Justice and mercy kiss at the altar. Armies of dreams inform exact science. The sterile cardinal numbers, always constant, unchanging, confess invisible, unruly dreams. The incorruptible puts on flesh just to let it be sacrificed in order to put death to death. Truth does not have a cleft foot. Truth is double-sided like a mirror. The seen understood with the help of the unseen. Truth has more in common with the riddle than the dictionary. Truth is paradox, house of the sacred. Death of the flesh begins at birth. Birth of eternal life begins at the moment of death. The innocent cancels the guilty. Matter is an eternal reciprocal that solves to the whole number one. This is from a chapbook called Ending the Gender Wars. I was fortunate to identify more with my father than my mother when I was growing up. He was an amazing man, a very compassionate man, because his mother had died when he was only 7 years old. And he loved his daughters more than life. And I was so blessed to have him as a dad. So when I get out into the real world and I knocked my shins against some hatred of women, it was quite a surprise to me. And the chapbook Ending the Gender Wars sort of focuses on that whole conflict between men and women, which has been going on since the beginning. If I taught a class at LCC called Women in Literature, and we looked at Elise and her husband's, Elise Bolding's book, The Underside of History. So if you want to do some wonderful winter reading on male and female issues, you want to read that book. It covers the issue from every discipline, from every science, and, anthropology, psychology, physiology, all of it. It looks at all it looks at the male female differences issue from all those perspectives. Very wonderful book. So this is called Woman versus the Myth of Progress. In my mother's body, I woke from genetic potential to flesh insistent, as in the first memory of rejection, when blood rushed away from me before my time, began the long fight to survive. I woke from the slumber of suburban isolation to the combat field of money, where cash registers tell the young what to do with their lives, where persons process through language diminished to numbers, where the dream of prosperity from honest work dissolved into the nightmare of the tyranny of men and their machines. From the tyranny of men, I woke to the tyranny of women, still carrying on bent shoulders the freight of power brokers, still not rid of the bullies, who with their systems of status and rank, turning on themselves, attack endless communion. That's just the beginning of the poem, but I thought I'd have mercy on you. I hope to be publishing that this next year. It's called Ending the Gender Wars. It'll be a chapbook available from Pauxprints. I'll let you know when these things become available. Okay, so this is not really a lighter theme. This is called Overcome. I have among my ancestors, martyrs, people destroyed because they spoke German at home and because they were Protestants when Catholics took over. So there's a strong Protestant thread in my family. And you may identify with this, maybe not. I don't know. Overcome. This was not your great-grandfather's April when arms closed around his nonviolent faith and carried him off to pain. A broken wheel keeps turning. This much is the same. What we learned, waiting for spring thaw, was that some fortunes will follow us past the end. One floret at a time, the lilac buds, hidden by overgrown trees, unfold thanks to the shadows that sheltered them from killing frost. The perfume of their clustered crosses overtakes the yard. And the pacifist martyr is with them, risen every year to say, "Fear not, I have overcome." Another one sort of on the theme of faith, Unashamed. Inspect me, says the testimony, prophecies fulfilled against impossible odds, addicts no longer enslaved, the brokenhearted enabled to forgive. To write this way makes you a collaborator, he said. Does he not see it, that to not write this way makes him a collaborator too? Any who create are echoes of the oldest story. How many mirrors need he clean to see his creator's reflection? Only one. Now to lighter themes, let's go to America. This actually is a true story. I was standing in church one day, and our international and non-denominational congregation in South Lansing is mostly white, but one of our pastors is Black, and there's quite a few Black people who attend there. People of every color attend there. And one Black family was visiting for the right time, and I just happened to be standing next to him, and so he asked me this question. This poem is called Opened Out. Is this America truly a place where people of different kinds really become one great family? He asked, his family listening eagerly beside him. Yes, I said, among those who have opened out. If you are closed like a fist, you remain apart. But to connect with those not like you, open out. We have friends who have not heard our stories, who have not embraced the same allies. They have different stories we want to hear. Far back in time, we all had the same grandmothers. That we can speak together freely, disagree without fear, without drawing swords, is another level of wonder. What harmony can there be without differences? I can love you even if we do not agree all the time. That we can respect each other, not requiring agreement on everything. This is humanity taking its own pace to lasting peace. And the last poet I'll read by me is called Rippling Waves. Rippling waves. A word set into a story draws a picture, marks time, and tracks motion. A word in a letter is a touch with unlimited reach. A word set into a poem is a stone time has worried smooth before it drops into the great stream. It is no longer simply a word. It becomes part of the great stream to shape the waters that flow over it to places beyond. A word set into a poem is a stone time has worried smooth. Oops, I just read that. Okay, the next line is, the book touches opposite sides of the great river of being to say, remember when we were not divided? Let us come together, not to argue or fight. Let us come together to remember when we used to be one family. You will not ban my stories, and I will not ban yours. Your place in the great story of eternity is as valuable as mine. I wait by the great river, looking for the wave you send to reach me. You on the other side waiting, look for mine. So the next poems I'm going to read, hopefully better than that, are written by other writers. I'll start with two poems by Judah Al Harizi. He's a Hebrew poet that lived in the 12th century. This is in translation, of course. The sun. Look, the sun has spread its wings over the earth to dispel the darkness, like a great tree with its roots in heaven and its branches reaching down to the earth. Another poem by him, The Lightning. And the lightning laughs at the clouds like a warrior who runs without growing weary or faint, or like a night watchman who dozes off, then opens one eye for an instant, then shuts it. This next one is so very transcendent. I had to bring this in. This is, I think, my favorite of all the Rumi poems. Rumi, Jalaluddin Rumi was a 13th century Turkish dervish, phenomenally popular in English translation now. He was a Christian, which is interesting when you read all of his works. And we can learn a lot from him. Here's one of my favorites of his, translated by Coleman Barks and John Moyne. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase, each other, don't make any sense. Here are some short poems by Basho. He was a Japanese samurai warrior who gave that career up and power he could have had as a ruler in Japan in order to become the writer of haiku. Haiku studies nature, and he eventually gave up his life to nature. He just said, I just want to go out to the mountain until there's nothing but the mountain. That is how he died. But before that, he won very many prizes in his country for amazing poetry, and these are two of my favorites. The temple bells have stopped, but I still hear the sound coming out of the flowers. That beautiful. The next one in that sequence is, there is nothing you can see that is not a flower. And let's see, what was I going to read next? I'm going to read from Dom Gabrielli, The Eyes of a Man. And Dom is an Italian. He lives, he takes care of his olive groves during part of the year. The rest of the year, he's in Paris. And I've been fortunate enough to edit some of his books for him. That's been a great pleasure. I'm honored by the way he values my skill. That's awesome. And I thought I'd honor him by reading some poems of his today. So this is the 19th of April, 2002. Out of the horizon of speechlessness, my hands cannot touch your words. I haven't the heart to hunt you from my dreams. Whose eyes cried last night when they killed our sister? Was it your dream or was it mine of you? I sat with a man. I asked him why he had to kill. I asked him questions no man can answer. I write from asking questions without answers. Futility's words upon the lime tree's bough. I sit here as blossoms float down onto the page. Why did you have to lie with the killer man, or was it the dream of death which bewitched you? Your hands were big enough to cover your eyes, enough alcohol to lie, enough to kill a brother and a sister, two less in a family that never was that large. How many footsteps to this door? How many pink petals fall before I get here? How many words make a poem? More certainly than the energy in the hand round my gentle sister's jugular. You left before living. You hoped before hope had meaning. You held his hand. You should have been able to look into his eyes. You should have been able to read his grin, but they hadn't taught you that at school. I creep around amidst the trees. I look at the wind for hours. I see the sun burst over the hills. Tears can't reach up to the blue, nor can I drink from the sun. All the noise raining down like a blanket over these flames, which cry out for the nameless. His second book was called The Parallel Body, and it's truly amazing. I think all grad students in writing should read it because he completely evades autobiography in that book. And, you know, during our age, we are plagued with the cult of confessionalism and of using autobiographical materials just to allow more authenticity in our poetry. But that's really entrapped us into a cult of personality, which, if you're not interested in the person writing, gets old real soon. And we've been stuck there in American poetry for more than 50 years, maybe 60 years. It followed imagism and was fueled by all the traveling poets who would earn money by reading in different places. And they became celebrities, you might say. Well, the other end of the spectrum would be Emily Dickinson, who didn't publish while she was alive. A friend of hers stole her poems and published them after she was dead because she wouldn't allow him to publish them while she was alive. So she wrote for its own sake and did world-class poetry, but did not find it interesting at all to make that a way through social life. So let's read from his next book, This Body Now, which is in French as well as English. And I'll read a series of poems here. All his poems are untitled. Oh, yes, all the beautiful ones are here. The rimbaud voices, the elegiac reminiscences. Every time a dying, the gate closes, it must be opened again. The night will end and the pen shall fall. If you love me, you must love me here. Without company, you must be able to look for hours at the wind, kiss the sunsets in me. Deeper than the granite of their cowardice, harder than the marble of your absence, dates rot from the palms of their images, bring back the lost sweetness. Peel the invitations, break open her honey mouth. Autumn will release summer's sugars. Desire will wait for the winter winds. I will shout for joy over the Indian seas. And maybe one more from him. In the high grasses, someone may speak, the echo of a lost echo. He might say, walk again, as if you were once a cripple. The language he uses is another. It has earned the organic imprint of another earth. And a last one from Dom. And I say to you, you are the flood, you are the waves which keep me alive. And I say to you, no manner of eyes, no manner of fingers, no manner of signatures and forms, no manner of them, no manner of her, no manner of impeachment, no manner of prison bars, no manner of gas, no manner of stamping, no manner of knives, no manner of killing can block this torrent, all of which I keep, all of which I give to you, to all of you. And that was from The Parallel Body, which has a surprise in the last poem that sends you back through the whole book to read it again. So I want to recommend that as a purchase. So these are his books. The Eye of a Man. And this is by, I think, Ziggurrat Press. Yes, Ziggurrat Books International. And This Body Now, which is by Editions Baz Art Boutique, printed in 2016. Another very good book with a lot of reading, a lot of good reading in there. He doesn't pull back from the violence of modern life. There's a reason why. His most recent book explains why he avoided autobiography all these years. And it tells about a traumatic events that happened to him and his brother when they were boys. And he waited to write about that until the killer had died. So you want to pick up, Google his recent book as well and get that as soon as it comes out from the printer, to learn more about him as a writer and as a person. There are reasons to avoid autobiography, and we make a mistake sometimes to think that a writer is talking about herself or himself with every poem. We don't. Sometimes we borrow voices like other characters. One of Ezra Pound's most favorite poems was in the voice of a child bride. At 14, I married my Lord you. And he wrote very, very believably in her voice. He was quite an extraordinary writer. And he had studied all of the Chinese poems in the Chinese, and so he translated many of them. And that was a poem of a borrowed voice that he borrowed from the Chinese. So having evoked Ezra Pound, famous author of The ABCs of Reading, which was sort of a Rosetta Stone for American poetry, for world poetry, actually. We miss you, Ezra Pound. And that makes very good reading also. He pretty much picks out an anthology of the best poetry he considers ever to have been written by his generation, which was the World War II generation. So you might want to pick that up as well. Thanks for joining me tonight. I am just learning how to do this. I'll keep trying to make it more interesting and learn how to engage people in the chat part. But I can accept your comments after I post it to Facebook, and to YouTube. I can accept your comments there as well. So happy spring. let's get the winter out of here. It's supposed to go to 70 degrees by this Saturday. There better be some crocus out there. Just saying. Bye now.